Welcome to a Friday edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm your host, John Gonzalez, along with our NBA insider, traveling man on vacation, on the road, still doing work. Bill Ryder is here. Where are you now?
I am in Santa Barbara at an ocean resort where I'm using Marriott points, and they have several times suggested the fine employees that work here that I don't belong here, and I've agreed. There's a bunch of rich people on the other side of that
I
door.
think you're in a suite. I think I saw a butler just go by.
Not a suite.
You've got room service. I mean, it's there's like gilded curtains and the whole bit.
I actually don't have any coffee because I only walk if there's rose petals at my feet at this property, and they forgot it this morning, so I'm stuck in the room with you.
Well, that person's getting fired.
Yeah, they are.
Are you? I'm looking forward to you returning to South Bay, but enjoy the rest of the vacation. It's a working vacation for you. You're still out here. You're still doing stuff. In the interim, we encourage everybody, download it and follow us. Please leave a review. We want people to find us. We're building something here at Beyond the Arc. We're here with you 5 days a week, so do that for us, and we'll be here for you every day. Later in the show, you can hear us talk about the Clippers trying to land the plane, even though I am uncertain that they have a pilot, Bill. And we'll also discuss whether or not the Sixers have enough time to get out of the play-in. And we're going to look ahead to an absolutely loaded schedule with our weekend forecast. But first, shortly before we decided to come on the air, there was breaking news. I don't know if we have a breaking news sounder. Aaron will have to figure that out. LeBron James's son, Bronny James, who had previously decided to enter the transfer portal in college, is now also hedging his bets and has entered the NBA draft. He can still get out of that, but he's going to meet with some teams. He's going to work out with some teams, and then he's going to make his decision. The conspiracy theories are flying right now, Bill. What do you think of this?
As you know, I tend toward, I don't know about conspiracy theories, but aliens and Bigfoot. So I'll let my mind roam. All right. My first thought is I'm just bummed out for the young man. And you're right. There's no guarantee he's actually going to enter or try to enter the NBA. He can change his mind based on a bunch of factors. So we've talked about this before. I live in LA, where obviously Bronny currently lives and plays. And a multitude of scouts, including some high-level executives who are the ones that are the ultimate decision makers or close to it for their respective teams in their draft rooms, have come through LA in the last year to scout USC and to a large degree to get a look at Bronny. So it's a lot of people, John. I have not talked to a single NBA person who has scouted Bronny in person. As you know, that's not just going to games, it's going to practice, it's trying to be around the program, who thinks that he's an NBA player by any stretch of the imagination at this point of his career. They think that he could be a really maybe good, interesting, maybe NBA player if he's in college 2, they really say 3 years. So I know we have to unpack all of this. My first worry is that this is LeBron pulling the strings, that some of those conspiracy theories about LeBron's desire to play with his son sooner rather than later are pushing this young man to a place where he is not going to succeed. Let me add this. I like LeBron. LeBron's amazing. There's still a lot of jealousy around the NBA, I think, toward LeBron James. I think a lot of just players are jealous of LeBron and his stature. I don't think he connects with guys socially the way that Kobe did, in a different way, or AI even, or certainly Jordan. I'm also worried that if Bronny's out there, he's just going to get abused by people who want to embarrass him because they couldn't embarrass his father. I'm worried about the kid.
On the merits, he's not ready. He's 19 years old. He is averaging just shy of 5 points per game at USC, just about 2 assists, just a little less than 3 rebounds. He's not even playing 20 minutes, just under 20 minutes. He's shooting 36% from the floor and 26% from 3. If his name was anything else, we would not be discussing this. However, his last name is James and his dad is LeBron. Now, the other day, LeBron was asked about this before we knew that he was declaring for the NBA draft, when it was just, hey, he's going to enter the transfer portal. It's not really working out at USC. And he had this to say.
Well, I don't know where it came from, but at the end of the day, Bronny's his own man, and he has some tough decisions to make. Yeah. And when he's ready to make those decisions, he'll let us all know. But as his family, we'll support whatever he does.
All right. So yesterday, Ashley and I talked about this, and I was like, you know what? That's awesome. LeBron's being a great dad. You know, whatever my kid decides, I'm going to support him. Clearly, he knew this was in the works.
You felt so. Yeah. Look, on the other side of this, and I don't know what the sort of plan is, right? But if you are another team and you are told, wink, wink, secret signal, homing pigeon from Rich Paul, if you draft Bronny, LeBron will come. or if you draft Bronny, there's a really good chance LeBron will come. And you're the Memphis Grizzlies, you're the New York Knicks. There's a lot of you're the Thunder. There's a lot of teams where I think you might just say to hell, especially a team like the Thunder, John, who have so many picks down the road and can't use them all.
Sure.
It might, which by the way, good for those teams. Maybe interesting for LeBron if you really believe he'll leave $50+ million on the table. He's got a player
51
option this summer. 51. Now the thing is, $51 million is a lot of money, and LeBron's always been about you got to make the
writer
money.
On vacation on the road money.
That is roses at your feet when you leave the hotel room money. But he doesn't actually need the money, right? It's not as if. So if he just chooses that he wants to play with this kid over $51 million, LeBron's going to be fine. He's not going to have to sell an island or a house. So it's an interesting calculus for some of those other teams. And here's the other question. Let's just be honest, because I'm not supposed to say this because everybody now is afraid of Rich Paul. What happens if Rich Paul is LeBron's friend and agent and runs the agency that LeBron is represented by, but will really run if he's not an NBA owner at some point? What happens if Rich Paul gives that indication and there was a misunderstanding? What if you draft Bronny thinking you're getting LeBron and LeBron doesn't show up? There's a lot that's going to play out between now and the draft involving this young man.
Well, this is why I said the conspiracy theories abound, because now all of a sudden, you heard the sound, right? This was just a day or two ago. It didn't happen overnight. Like last night or this morning, Bronny got up on his own. He's like, you know what I'm doing? Declaring for the draft. And I didn't run it by my dad. Of course, LeBron knew that this was coming, right? So LeBron was like, oh, I don't even know where that came from. I just want my son to, be a kid and he's his own man and make his own decisions. Obviously, LeBron knew that this was coming. But so now people are wondering, because as you were speculating, if you do draft Bronny, does that mean you're getting the 2-for-1? Which in turn means if you're so inclined to continue down this rabbit hole, that LeBron is potentially pretty Machiavellian here and is using his son as leverage. Then the question becomes how much leverage does Bronny actually give him? So on the one hand, I go, all right, this offseason, we've discussed this. The Lakers will have 3 draft picks that they can move to potentially upgrade the team. We've floated some names like Donovan Mitchell, maybe Trae Young, but it looks like they're in a spot to upgrade the team. They didn't do anything at the trade deadline, and obviously LeBron wasn't thrilled about that. This could be a, hey, Lakers, get your act together thing. Otherwise, I might go somewhere if my kid gets drafted.
So I think there's 3 things. You're right, and I'm with you. There are 3 things that are playing out here, and I don't know which LeBron and or his son rank the highest. One is Bronny's NBA career. Presumably that should be the only factor. It's not. So, and as we've discussed, he doesn't really have an NBA career if his name is not James right now.
Would not be drafted.
Would not be, not even a second-round pick. He is not an NBA player at this. Now, there are plenty of guys who were not NBA players after their freshman year in college or their sophomore year in college who got there. It's not easy, but it's not as if it's an impossible road. It's just easier if your name isn't James. All right. The second thing is the idea that maybe they truly, everything else aside, or to a degree, just want to play together. Maybe that's a real thing. And I have a son who, like me, will never play in the NBA, but he's 11. I can relate to the idea that you will do things for your kids and make sacrifices or change up your life if you think there's a connection you can have with them. So maybe LeBron James really just is to hell with it. I'm going to play with my kid, and I can feel my body starting to feel like it's 40 and not 30, and that's the priority. And then the third thing, as you noted, is whatever the hell LeBron James actually wants, whether he's leveraging the Lakers or John, the guy is a ring chaser, and not in a bad way. I'm sure he's aware of his legacy. If he doesn't think the Lakers are good enough, there is a world where he could use the idea of Bronny by telling only a select team or two, draft Bronny and I'll show up. And it gives LeBron an excuse, right? Bronny gets drafted by the Thunder. I'm just making this up in the first round. And Bron was like, well, I love Bronny, so I'm going to go play with him. Added benefit, I have a much better chance as LeBron James to win a ring in Oklahoma City than I do in LA. And no one's going to kill me or crucify me or make fun of me because I did it for the love of my kid. And not I went to Oklahoma City and left the Lakers because we weren't good enough. I think all of that you have to sort of balance in what the equation actually is.
It's so wild. Like everything that you just outlined there as a possibility, people are going to be digging in and dining out on this forever. I mean, I feel like one of those cork boards with the red strings connecting by push pins.
Photos of people in black and white from the newspaper.
I mean, because there's so many different ways you can go about this. All right. Aside from the fact that he's potentially using his child as leverage either for the Lakers or another team, it's hard for me to imagine that he's going to pass up $51 million because you are right. LeBron's going to be fine no matter what he does. And if he did leave, he's going to get paid anyway. Not $51 million, but he'd get a healthy salary. But $51 million is still a lot of money, even to somebody like LeBron. Let's just say for the sake of argument that this is a real possibility and that LeBron has deployed Bronny as sleeper agent James, right? And he's using him, he's dangling him out there as bait for another team. How high do you, because you mentioned the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they do have, I think, like 27 picks in the next however many years. Yeah. How high do you think a team would potentially take a guy who, if his last name wasn't James, would not be drafted at all? I mean, like a second round pick, if you're getting LeBron, is one thing. Are you dipping into the first rounders?
Yes. So I just did Tankathon, right? The site where it'll just simulate the draft for you. So here's a single simulation. You're not doing any of the top 6, 7 picks. So the Spurs in this simulation would have 1 and 7. San Antonio's not on the verge of a championship. It doesn't fit.
Memphis, it is a bad draft, though.
It is a bad draft. That's the other thing. You're right. It is a historically bad. Memphis at 8. You're the Grizzlies. Things have gone horribly wrong this year. Everybody's injured. Ja Morant's coming back. You felt like you had a chance to break through a couple years ago, and you lost to the Warriors. Last year, yeah. I took my kid to that
Last year they were good. 2 years ago they lost to the Warriors, right? Yeah.
LeBron is still playing like a top. Did you see Dwayne Wade the other day said that this is the best he's ever seen LeBron James? I mean, he's ever seen LeBron for a variety of reasons I don't buy, but LeBron is still playing at a super high level, so you're not just selling tickets. So Memphis at 8. I don't think the Rockets are good enough, but they're at 10 here. And then the Thunder at 12. And New Orleans from LA in this Tankathon at 14. Wow. In every one of those cases, Memphis, I'll do 3 of them. Memphis, the Thunder, and the Pelicans. I think you can convince yourself, if you're those teams, that if we add LeBron James, we are good enough to go to another level. And I think we have agreed on this show, either we think each of those teams are already there or can go to that level if they add a piece.
You're starting to sell me on this, because at first I'm like, come on, this is ridiculous. Who would take a chance on using a first round pick on Bronny? Yeah, if it's a 2-for-1 and you're absolutely certain that LeBron is coming, then you're essentially drafting LeBron, then fine. But now all of a sudden, especially in a weak draft, those teams that you just outlined, Memphis last year was a 2 seed. They ended up losing to the Lakers. And then this year is a completely lost year, right? Ja was suspended to start. Then everybody and their mom was hurt. Now they're closing out the season with the Jacksons, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Gigi Jackson, and like 3 guys that they got out of the G League. It's just like a whole team of two-way contracts. The Pelicans are a very intriguing team for all the reasons that we've outlined on this podcast, but clearly are still a level below those real championship contenders. I think LeBron super levels them up. And then the Thunder, as you know, I'm extremely, extremely high on their young. And now all of a sudden you bring in a veteran presence. I do wonder though, with the Thunder, that's where I'm like, maybe not, just because yes, they have 27 picks over the 7 years. So if any team can afford to just burn a draft pick, even a first rounder, it would be the Thunder. But do you want to if you add LeBron, it's LeBron's team. I don't care who's on it. You've got a young, good thing going on. You kind of would change the chemistry there.
So from their perspective, I don't know. I'll say this. Can I, your board that you put together with the strings and the yarn, and let me add a part. So a couple things. One, it is just believed, it is known around the NBA that the Thunder are outstanding at young player development. That's been true for a long time, like the way Sam Presti uses his G League team and all the things that they do. So if you're LeBron and you are concerned about giving Bronny the best chance, probably knowing deep somewhere in your heart that maybe he should still be in college at some university, the Thunder are plays to do a good job developing young players. But also on your board, this would put into a different context when LeBron and JJ Redick on that podcast just started singing the praises of Diagonal the other day. Did you see this? Where they're like, LeBron, he's so good. Because he doesn't say anything ever, LeBron, without a purpose. Everything he said is strategic. Everything is, when he said it, I thought, that's weird. That's really nice. But there's a lot of people you can pray, like that. And he is a good coach, but so I'm with you on maybe the Thunder don't, but if you're the Thunder, the other thing is Presti has already operated with 3 former stars that he didn't really keep on to the right way. And they made a finals, but they lost to LeBron when they had Durant, Westbrook, and Harden all on the same team. And not just those guys. There's a good young core. So maybe he's more inclined to be riskier with his culture than we might think, because he does know that as much as he's great at what he does, it is Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. No offense, Oklahoma City. I lived there when I was a kid. But it's not an easy place to hold on to stars, right? You have to do everything right. And LeBron brings a shine wherever he goes. So maybe there's – I remember Neil O'Shea, who's not doing anything now, but when he was when he was the guy with the Clippers, he told me and a bunch of other people that when they interviewed LeBron before the decision, the Clippers interviewed LeBron before the decision. They knew the Clippers, they couldn't land LeBron. They were already told, as I understand it, that they could not land LeBron. But Neil O'Shea's plan, then the GM was, if LeBron comes in, it just offers a shine, and the next cycle, it'll be easier to convince some superstar to actually come here if there aren't many options for them like there are LeBron, because LeBron James is LeBron James. And it worked with Chris Paul. So I also think there's a world where if you're Presti, it just makes it easier to sell the guys you already have on staying in Oklahoma City because LeBron was here. And if it's good enough for LeBron, it can be good enough for you.
I mean, it's damning with faint praise, especially on the Clippers end, because you're talking about the Clippers in the same breath as you're talking about the Thunder. The Clippers are in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is in and of itself a selling. But I get what you're talking about.
They were owned by a horrible owner.
Yes, an absolutely horrendous human being whose name we shall not mention on this
pariah organization at the time.
But I am saying that LA is a selling point. It's the off-season capital of the NBA. Everybody just basically lives here in the off-season.
Right.
Oklahoma City is a much harder sell. Although part of me goes, if you were going to shuttle Bronny back and forth from your G League team and you wanted to give him a little bit of air cover so that he isn't absolutely overwhelmed by the media presence, for sure the national media would descend upon Oklahoma City, but it wouldn't be the same crush as if he ended up in Los Angeles, New York, Philly, Boston, some city like that. Meant the same deal. It would be a little bit less intense.
That's a great point. I'll add and I like these guys, but the Thunder's public relations, media relations staff operate as much like an NFL operation as any team in the NBA outside of the Heat. They're super guarded, and I like him, Matt, but it's true. They're over the top. I mean, they're nice about it, but it's just, I can remember back in the day being able to walk down the tunnel and just walk out with Kevin Durant, right? When he was young, that has gone away. And so it also is just a very protective culture, to your point, not just how small the media is, but if you're a random reporter there and you ask a legitimate question they don't like, you get frozen out for 3 weeks. So it's a great spot.
My former coworker, Brian Curtis, who's a sports media columnist. He's awesome. He wrote a fantastic story about exactly what you're talking about.
I missed it.
Years ago, back when I was at that place, he wrote an awesome story about what it's like to be a media member covering Oklahoma City and how it's an odd disconnect between the market size and how intense and how intensely protective the team is about that whole bit. But I love now how we came into this. I came into it going, this is absurd. Bronny has to go back to college. Why are we even discussing this too? I'm pretty sure LeBron's going to Oklahoma City. I think we just broke news.
We did it.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. It's fascinating. The conspiracy theories around this are only going to abound. They're going to multiply by a significant by exponents.
They should, because the other thing about LeBron is he has been unpredictable. When he went to Miami, that wasn't the predicted outcome. That was a surprise. And when he went back to Cleveland, he is a guy who does things people don't see coming. And then in retrospect, we all say, oh yeah, it makes sense.
2 days ago, he looked into the camera with a straight face and went, I don't even know. What do you mean? I've never even heard of this. Bronny, did you say his name is Bronny? I'm not sure I've met him before. I just want him to be his own man. And then 2 days later, the dude's declaring for the draft. It's unbelievable. It's an absolutely unbelievable story. We're going to talk about it nonstop as it develops further. We're going to take a quick break though. And then we're going to talk about actual NBA basketball. There's a lot happening. We're going to discuss whether or not the Sixers can actually get out of that play-in, and the Clippers, man, they are white knuckling this thing. That's next.
You hear that? It's the heartbeat of American soccer, and this rivalry is gonna get loud. The USL on CBS and streaming live on Paramount+. All
right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc Friday edition. Bill Ryder, John Gonzalez here. If you're listening to us on a podcast, we thank you. Please subscribe and download. And also, you should check out our YouTube page. You get to see our smiling face. You get to see Bill's palatial presidential bridal suite. I think it's both of those things. But you can find us on YouTube at Beyond the Arc CBS. Subscribe to our page, hit the like button, leave a comment, do all that good stuff. All right, Bill, Sixers.
Yeah,
I think you've heard about this guy, Joel Embiid. He came back the other night, played a very good game against Oklahoma City. They won that. Then they go down and they play the Miami Heat last night. A little bit of a weird game. Miami kind of gave it away a little bit. Sixers came roaring back in the end. They closed on a 15-3 run. And now, as we record this, they are just 1/2 game back of Miami for the 7th spot and 1 game back of the Pacers for the 6th spot. What do you think here? Chances that these 76ers that you have been trumpeting this entire time get out of the play-in?
Every time since we've been doing this podcast, me, you, and Ash, that the Sixers have come up in our string, I have written some version of championship parade or championship. And I will be honest, John, I don't know if you know this. In the beginning, I was just trolling you because I found it very amusing.
I detected that.
You wear your pain so much on your face, it's hard not to just want a response. It's amazing. You're just like pain face when we're talking. But now I'm not kidding. Now I actually
have resting Sixers pain face.
You have resting. I hate the universe and this guy talking about the Sixers because he doesn't know the depths of my suffering over my lifetime face. And
That's correct.
Being the good guy that I am, really enjoy it. But so I talked the other day when you and I were having this conversation about how, for me, Embiid is the most impactful player in the NBA, probably, who, if you take away his number 2, can still be really impactful. I know it's a small sample size, but his first game back, no Tyrese Maxey. Embiid was amazing, even though he was totally gassed they win. Last night was a reminder, maybe I forgot in tandem, how it's not as if he doesn't have a number 2. Tyrese Maxey was awesome, and they're a different team. We've discussed it offensively, defensively, net rating. That they have all the attributes of a championship team. So the fact that Embiid is back, the reminder to me of how dynamic that duo is, and the way in which, for me at least, the Eastern Conference continues to just open up, and that playing the Bucks, and maybe this is a fallacy in my thinking, a 2-7 matchup against Milwaukee, I think is a winnable series for either Miami or Philadelphia, and we'll see where we are. But when we get there, I would probably take that 7 seed if everybody is healthy. Then you become the 2 seed, right? Then your path is it. I think there's a lot of teams that have a chance. I think Philly is up there. There's no other team that I think has a better chance than Philadelphia. It doesn't mean they have a great chance, but I like Philly's chances as much as Milwaukee, as much as the Knicks with Julius Randle out now, as much as Cleveland. Why? You've said this. Why not Philly in the conference finals? And then who knows?
I want to see if they can get out of the play-in first. But last night was a really good reminder of all of the things that you were talking about when Embiid was out, that once he gets back, really anything could happen, because last night wasn't really that great of a game for Joel Embiid. He scored 29 points. He needed 25 shots to do it. He looked tired. He made some mistakes. He was oddly, and I've mentioned this before, I'm not a huge believer in single game box score plus minus. One game doesn't give you a huge picture. But last night he was oddly like minus 19. So that's super unusual for him. But you mentioned Tyrese Maxey. And so like on nights when Embiid doesn't really have it cooking, it kind of frees up Maxey to do his own thing. And Maxey was awesome last night. He went for 37 and 11. He was super efficient. And they end up stealing a game in Miami that they probably should have lost. And now all of a sudden, like, there's a world where they do get out of the play-in, or at least move up to the 7 seed, and they host that 7-8 game. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because the Sixers have the easiest remaining schedule in the NBA. They got 5 games left. They got the Grizz and the Spurs this weekend on a back-to-back Saturday and Sunday. My guess is, and I don't have any inside info on this, I'm just like looking at the tea leaves. Embiid played 2 games. They got the Grizz up first. I think he's going to sit the Grizz game. Then you play him against Wemby and the Spurs on Sunday. And then their last 3 games, Bill, are all spaced out. They're easy games with the exception of one. They've got the Pistons on Tuesday. Then they don't play until next Friday against the Magic. That's their lone game left. It's like a pretty tough one. And then they finish out on Sunday against the Nets. This is like, as these things go, like a tailor-made scenario for the Sixers to run the table and give themselves a chance to get out of the play-in.
And tailor-made for, I think, a different approach I would take than they have taken with Embiid, because I would not be particularly worried about home court advantage in a 1-game play-in. It is a coin flip. And if you're a Miami Heat fan, or you have every chance to win that game too, I would be 100% on the side of playing Embiid. I'm erring on the side of fewer minutes. If the doctors say maybe he can hit 32, which is what I think he played last night, and I'm Nick Nurse, I'm playing him 28. We talked in his first game back that I don't think he should have been on the floor in the fourth quarter when he was. I know they won the game.
Yeah, they ran him into the ground in the first game.
He couldn't breathe. So that's the point about your schedule is they're not going to fall out of the 7-8. They're going to be in this, whether they're 7 or they're 8.
Yeah.
That's where they're going to be. And by the way, I can be an optimist on behalf of the Sixers on the idea that if they win the play and everything's that 7-8 play-in is great. If they lose that game and they obviously have to go to the 8 play-in, then you're screwed, even if you win that second. So for me, I am spending this time ramping him up, getting him minutes, but not too many minutes, not even taking a 3% chance that he's going to regress or re-injure himself. I don't know how many minutes that is, but I know it's been too many. Like, I don't want to see Joel Embiid gassed with that. I know what he said, he lost weight because he couldn't eat, but like, he looks to me
about 20 pounds.
Dude, come on, man. Like I would use that easy schedule not to chase the 7 seed, but to chase optimal Joel Embiid for when you play Miami in the play-in, regardless of whether you played in Miami or Philadelphia.
Well, I'm not talking about chasing the 7 seed. I am talking about chasing the 6 seed. They're only one game back of the Pacers for the 6 seed, and getting out of the play-in would be a comfort.
That would be huge.
Because that's what I'm saying, because then you don't have to play the extra game. You don't have to roll the dice. You don't have to worry. And no matter who ends up in that 3, you know, if you somehow get into the 3-6 matchup, and right now that 3 seed is very much in flux. Could be the Cavs, could be the Magic, could be the Knicks. Maybe the Bucks fall off, but I doubt that they're going to drop that far. But so you'd be looking at Cavs, Magic, or Knicks as opposed to potentially the Bucks in that 7 seed. And then in worst case scenario would be the Celtics, and you definitely don't want to draw the Celtics in the first round. So the 6 would be pretty cushy. And so as I look at the other schedules,
what are their
Pacers,
odds? I should have looked. What are their percentage odds to get to 6?
I looked at the odds to move up. It's about 20%.
So so I'm not
1 in 5.
So like, to your point about the easy schedule, maybe there's a route where you can do this you can chase that and not play him too many minutes. I am erring on the side of not too many minutes, but you're right. If you guarantee a best of 7 series and you guarantee in the first round it's not against the Boston Celtics, that improves your possible outcomes once you get to the playoffs.
All of a sudden, it's gotten very, very interesting for the.
I love your optimism. You have 180, man.
One chance in 5 to move up to the 6. I'll take it. Less optimistic about this next team that we're going to discuss, which is the Los Angeles Clippers. Bill, they beat the Nuggets in LA last night, but it was not easy. They didn't have Kawhi Leonard. He was ruled out early because he's gotten treatment on his knee. We're going to get into that in a second. The vibes around the Clippers, though, not great. They were up 11 with a little over 7 minutes to play in the fourth. Looked like they had it, and then all of a sudden, here come the Denver Nuggets. Here comes Nikola Jokic, had a monster triple-double. They were one off-balance three-pointer from Jokic away from winning that game and sending the Clippers into an absolute spiral. So the Clippers get a win. They really needed it. But if I'm a Clippers fan, if I'm Ty Lue as the head coach, I don't feel good about the way that this team is playing right now.
And by the way, Jokic should have had a little more time. The Nuggets called their timeout weirdly, like they took a second and a half or 2 seconds.
Yeah, they screwed that up.
Because Malone had been ejected from the game and it was assistant.
Yes, he did.
It was a weird. And then on the first inbound, right, they burned another half second or second. So Jokic, he can hit that shot as he had it. He should have had a couple more seconds. This is the same story that always happens with James Harden teams, right? There's drama, there's dysfunction. You've got Paul George, remember? And I think we talked about this on the pod. Someone asked him how you help Harden get out of a shooting slump, and he did a pissed off next question, if I'm remembering properly.
Yes, he did.
How that went down. You're right. The dysfunction is absolute, and that's before you get into the worries about Kawhi Leonard, not just how he's banged up now, but what does that mean if they were to try to make a run for 2 months, basically, of extra bonus basketball in the playoffs. They're still really talented. I'm not a big James Harden guy. I think Paul George is grossly overestimated when it comes to playoff games. If you remember Playoff P, when he used to call himself Playoff P, the guy when he went to Oklahoma City and was spending a lot of time, this is old school, but talking about how the Pacers didn't give him the chances. At that point in his career, he had never hit a buzzer beater, had missed a lot of them. So like that's a guy who I think doesn't get the flack he deserves sometimes for the lack of postseason success that he has not really had, especially since his injury. I know with the Pacers, they had that fun run against LeBron's team, but I just think that team's made up of a bunch of guys other than Kawhi that I don't find that reliable when it really matters.
I want to go back to one of those guys who has not been very reliable recently, and that's James Harden. He had been in a huge slump. Last night, he scored 20 points. That snapped a streak, Bill. of 12 straight games without him reaching 20. Now, again, 20 or more, right? And last night he barely hit the 20 mark. He hit 20 on the number. That was the longest.
A huge 3 at the end too to ice the game.
He missed a big 3 at the end. That was the longest streak of him not hitting 20 or more since he played in Oklahoma City 13 years ago. So when Paul George is asked about it yesterday, prior to the game, and people are like, the media's like, hey, Paul George, James Harden isn't really shooting very well. I'm imagining you need him. I'm paraphrasing. I'm doing a thing now. I'm imagining that you need him to shoot better. How are you going to fix Paul? How are you going to fix James Harden? And he says, I'm not the coach. Next question. And man, red flags. That is big time. Yikes. Like he didn't want any part of that. It was completely innocuous deal. It feels like the vibes are super off for that. But vibes aside, what can Ty Lue do here, whether X's and O's or vibes, because they're both bad right now?
Yeah. By the way, Harden was still awful last night, despite
that's what I'm saying. He barely hit 20.
Yeah. And it took him a lot of shots. I mean, it's not
a lot of shots.
I think a lot of free throws, old school. I don't know what Ty Lue can do, because I was a Ty Lue skeptic when he was in Cleveland, because I just think it's hard to make an assessment of a coach when LeBron is your superstar. Turns out Ty Lue's a great coach.
He's really
outstanding coach, but outstanding X's and O's and outstanding in the locker room. I mean, that's just, and you talk to people who have been around him, worked on his staff. The guy is the real deal. Top 5, I don't know what he is. He's a great coach. And if that guy has not been able to make this group of players play together the way they're supposed to on the floor and get along, I don't know what you can do. That feels like remember when Paul George and Kawhi came in, when they first showed up, there was a group of Clippers who had kind of grinded and I think had been the 8th seed the year before those two guys showed up, and had been a fun, interesting team. And PG and Kawhi feuded with all those guys, right? Like it has been a problematic dynamic for Paul George and to a lesser extent Kawhi Leonard, as I understand it, with every person they've had in that locker room. So I think you have a Paul George problem and you have a James Harden problem. They're separate problems that have met. I don't know that it's solvable, John. I don't know that either of those guys were made for each other, or over the course of their careers made for other players if your goal is to be really successful. I don't know what the solution is.
I think the more that this goes on like this, the more that they look like they're hitting some bumpy stretches of road here. They don't really look streamlined. It's not kumbaya like it was from mid-December on to mid-February when they were crushing the entire league and everybody's giving happy quotes and it looked like everything's going on. The more it goes like this, the more I think that PG might actually leave. And I am higher on PG than you. I think he's an awesome awesome two-way player. There is a team on the East Coast that's going to have projected $65 million in cap space potentially. Last one, two more quickly on the Clippers. What's your level of concern on Kawhi? This has been one of his healthiest seasons in recent memory. It's easily his healthiest season since he joined the Clippers. He's only missed 8 games, Bill, but they did shut him down early. They sent him back from Sacramento to LA to get treatment on his knee. Anytime you see something like that, it definitely raises a red flag. We'll see if he ends up playing tonight on the second leg of a back-to-back. My suspicion is because I think they have the Grizz tonight. I think it's the Grizz. My suspicion is because they won last night and they beat the Jazz at home, that they'll probably let him rest one more game. But anytime you hear Kawhi and knee issue, makes me nervous.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm always nervous about Kawhi Leonard.
Jazz Eclipse.
Yeah. It's another bad team. Well, interesting. Mediocre team. They're bad. They're bad.
Yeah.
I'm always worried about Kawhi. And remember, you and I certainly talking to you, freaked out a few weeks ago when they shut Kawhi down for an undisclosed reason, and then he played. So the answer is I don't know, because it's two things. How banged up is he? Is this load management? Is this precautionary? Or is there really a problem they're managing? And even if it is a problem they're managing, how much confidence can you have the fact that he's played these games, that if this Clippers team has success, that they can play multiple series over multiple weeks or more in the playoffs? All of that is in terms of confidence level, very, very low for me. Also, as you said, it's a miserable team, and we have seen that Kawhi doesn't like to be miserable. I mean, he's a pretty particular guy.
He's super happy looking all the time. Always looks like that guy always looks like he's having a blast. Last one for you. There is a high probability that the Clippers, who are currently the 4 seed, who are 2 games up on the 5 seed Dallas Mavericks, will play each other in the first round. I believe it's better than a 2 out of 3 chance, something like 66% last time I looked at it. as it currently stands, who you got in that series if it happens?
I totally blanked out on you. I was thinking about my vacation.
Clippers and Mavericks. It looks highly likely that they're going to play each other in the first round.
Next question. I don't want either team. Do I have to pick one?
You got to pick one.
I mean, those are the two teams I believe in the least in the Western Conference. I believe in the Lakers. I believe in the Suns more. I know you're going to go form and the fact they get along.
I'm all over the Mavs.
You're going Dallas. I know you're going
all over the Mavs in that series.
It's the kind of series they should win, which is why I'm like, oh, Kyrie will find a way. The Clippers will play well. They'll get up 2-1. I'll go. You know what? I'll go Clip. Nah, I'll go Mavs.
Very reluctant.
I want to go Clippers so badly.
I'll let you think about it a little bit longer. Maybe we can figure out a bet in that one because look, the Mavericks are on the rise. They're playing well. They figured stuff out. They like each other. You know, they have something that the Clippers said that they don't have, which is an identity. And the Clippers are the Clippers, and they're spiraling. And it looks like everybody needs to assume crash position for this landing here. All right, we're going to take a quick break. There's a loaded schedule that we got to talk about. So we're going to do our weekend forecast next.
It's a championship preview from the Final Four as our We Need to Talk team brings you all the madness. Sunday on CBS.
Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. John and Bill here getting you ready for a very busy NBA slate this weekend. Just a couple games I want to run past you here, Bill. GSW, the Warriors, 6-game winning streak. They're at the Mavs tonight. And then the Wolves against the Suns in a game that has potential playoff implications, seeding implications for both. Those are two fun games.
Yeah, and the Warriors are really starting to figure it out. And I know we talked about this the other day, maybe getting their ass kicked a little bit by the Rockets. Just the idea that they were still sort of playing for something has sparked a return. They make me as nervous as the Clippers do, or having to pick the Mavs in a series, because Draymond is so unpredictable and he's so predictably important to that team that they can't win without Draymond Green. And there are times when it feels like they can't win with him either. But I like it's one game, but I like the Warriors in this game. And I still, depending on sort of how it plays out and who's in the top spot, I kind of like the Warriors' opportunity to make a run. I still think there's a world where they can do it, man.
They've been intriguing us all season long. I think, they should send the Rockets a thank you card and a fruit basket for kind of pushing them a little bit, because as you remember, when the Rockets were on that winning streak, Tari Eason, who has played something like 20 games and got shut down for the rest of the season, he did an Instagram post where he was channeling, like the movie The Warriors, where he's like, Warriors, come out and play. Well, last night after Golden State won their 6th straight game, Steph Curry was sitting on the bench, and it was a top tier troll. He had the bottles on his fingers, just like from the movie where they're doing Warriors come out and play. So for people who know, they know. And that was like nicely done by him to troll the Rockets there. Saturday, you got the Cavs and the Lakers. That's a fun one. The Cavs are kind of like coming apart at the seams here, Bill. They've lost 6 of the last 10.
You selling your stock? Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, I'm out on the Cavs.
Out on the Cavs.
I think Don Mitchell is out on the Cavs too, by the way. Like, he's been talking about them. Doesn't look like it's happy times in Cleveland. And then on Sunday, Bill, basically everybody's playing. 26 teams are playing on Sunday, almost the entire association. Going to run a couple of past you here. Cavs, we mentioned, they're going to be at the Clips. The Heat and the Pacers is a big one for
that's a huge game.
6-7. Yes, that's a big one.
The Pacers have been sneaky interesting lately too. We haven't talked a lot.
Yeah, they kind of fell off the radar a little bit.
They've had some moments, and that they're really inconsistent, but they have some highs in them. That team's interesting.
But that could very well determine who gets that 6th seed and who ends up potentially playing the Sixers in that 7-8 game. So that game's at the Pacers. Pacers really need that one. Pacers have the 11th hardest schedule down the stretch, and the Heat have the 7th easiest. So Sixers and Heat, as we close this thing out right now, much easier sledding than the Pacers.
Doesn't it feel like the ultimate Miami Heat experience, right? They struggle all year. We doubt them all year. We say that last year's run was fluky. They get hot toward the end. They build a little momentum. Maybe they sneak out of the play and maybe they don't. And then they go on a postseason run, because the East is so banged up. Why not the Sixers or the Heat as the team that kind of comes out other than Boston?
I could do why not the fill in the blank team in the Eastern Conference. for pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
Like except for maybe the Cavs and the Bucks right now.
I need to write this, and I know it's super obvious, but if the Celtics do not come out of the East, based on the way that it is, the sky is falling, Joe Mazzulla sucks, Jason Tatum can't win, right? It's not the roster. It shouldn't be Brad Stevens. I mean, they have to come out of the East. Everything about not just their team, but who the rest of the East, they have to come out of the East.
Aaron and I were talking about this yesterday before the show. It has to be this year for them, and not just come out of the East, but they got to win it this year. This is their chance. This is the best team that they have had since 2008 when they won their last title. They have been, with the exception of how they looked against the Denver Nuggets, the most consistent team in the NBA. They have the best net rating in the NBA. They have the best point differential in the NBA. They have the best record in the NBA. They have the best 1 through 6 in the NBA.
Right. They're 1 through 6. They're the best roster.
They have home court locked up throughout the playoffs. Everything is set up for. If you can't win with that set of criteria, then I don't know when you're ever going to win.
They've got largely their core having been through a bunch of battles. They made the finals 2 years ago. They should have made it last year, and they almost came back against the Heat. So those of us, right or wrong, that think that you have to go through some losing to win sometimes, they've got that locked up. By the way, and I think there's a world where they don't. I mean, obviously they should. Whatever their odds are, I would fade their odds. Whatever Vegas is, I would take, I think, the field depending on the number if I were gambling, because I do think there's some issues there, and I do worry about Tatum, and I know that they're superior talent-wise, but I could see them slipping up. They better win. They better at least get out of the East, or all hell's going to break loose in Boston.
Not surprisingly, Jaylen Brown is out tonight for the Celtics, as is Derek White. Jaylen Brown's dealing with a hand thing, so I thought that was like a lock that he'd get shut down. But we did talk about, like, they've got roughly 2 weeks till they play their first playoff game. Now's the time to get some of those guys healthy, but then you also have to guard against Russ, so you got to get him some minutes. But yeah, it not a surprise that Jaylen Brown is out tonight. Just a couple more for you to pay attention to on Sunday that also have playoff seeding implications. Western Conference, Suns and Pelicans. Pelicans at Suns on Sunday. Suns currently in the 6, Pelicans currently in the 7. Identical records. Big game there.
Big game. And you know that I still, although there's a lot of, I'm not sure, drama, but Pablo Torre finds out, did a pretty deep dive on Matt Ishbia and it was awesome. I watched the entire thing on my vacation. I'm actually mad at Pablo because I didn't want to. I wanted to watch a clip. I got the watch and I couldn't stop. My wife got pretty mad at me. I had to pretend it wasn't work, even though I
highly recommend it if you're into the intersection of sports and mortgage lending.
Yeah, but I think it also
does it for you. It's great.
A lack of impatience and one of the big mistakes owners make in any sport is they think whatever lessons they learned or practices they brought to success in their business transfers automatically to their sports teams, and they don't. And my takeaway was, this guy's a go for the he basically made his money when government regulation changed and there was this sort of vacuum that opened up for middlemen to sell mortgages. It's really interesting, even though I made it sound super boring. And the way to win was to be aggressive and to pounce and to go for it. That doesn't work in the NBA. And so it struck me as this guy has followed the same, we got to go now because this is the only moment model on the Suns, and it's not going to work. And they've mortgaged their future. And if they don't win this year, and they're not going to, this is the kind of owner who's not going to know how to respond. I like Isaiah Thomas, but most people don't. Isaiah is like his shadow advisor. I just think there's probably so much dysfunction and drama behind the scenes there that we're not talking about because the rest of us have already written them off. But there's no way, based on that report from Pablo and just what I know about the guy, that Ishbia has written them off.
People should check out
the future. It's
the
good.
Pablo thing. The future is mortgage. This is their team. They're locked in right now. They're capped out. They won't be able to sign anybody except for their own guys like Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal. And then they don't have any picks either. So this is their team. Right. And on top of that, even if they wanted to pull the plug on Bradley Beal, they can't because they let Bradley Beal bring his no trade clause from Washington with him to Phoenix for reasons surpassing understanding. Anyway, that's a sense. One more for you, and then we got to get out of here. Two more. Wolves and Lakers are playing, and the Wolves obviously still jockeying for position at the top of the Western Conference. But the one that I think is most intriguing on Sunday that we haven't mentioned yet, Knicks at Bucks. Knicks got horrible news yesterday, although a little bit of good news afterwards. Julius Randle out for the season. OG Anunoby could potentially be coming back. He's cleared for contact and playing 5-on-5. But the Bucks are also completely spiraling right now. Yes, and that one is very intriguing.
So I do think a lot of times I'm not sure that I buy the idea that momentum or bad momentum at the end of the regular season is that big a deal. I know this is different, but last year Denver kind of didn't give a crap at the last 5 weeks and just shut it down and obviously won the whole thing. Milwaukee's different. There is dysfunction. I know we talked about Doc Rivers selling out the traveling. I mean, this is an important game for Milwaukee. It's not as important for the Knicks. It is in terms of where they finish in the East, but the Knicks are basically doing what they're doing, missing 2 of their best guys. And as long as OG comes back, and I know Randall's a big loss, I want both, but I would pick OG and Anunoby if I could only bring one guy back over Randall. So I think there's probably like hope and a little belief with the Knicks, even though they're the lesser team. And I think there's probably a whole bunch of anger and frustration within that Bucks organization, plus the pressure of they're supposed to be the second best team in the East. That'll be a great game, and I think a sign of things to come.
Great game on Sunday. And then tonight, the Bucks are in action against the Raptors at home. Damian Lillard had missed the last 2 games, Bill, but it looks like he will play tonight for the Bucks. So at least that's a little modicum of good news for the Bucks, but that's something for us to keep our eye on.
And you and I are going to be hanging out tonight on HQ, right?
You and I have the late hit. I've been beyond the dark or beyond the arc.
I know you have
dark every night this week. So
it's because of me. I'm sorry. Thank you.
It'll be nice to have you with me. So if you're so inclined after the NBA games wrap up tonight, check us out on CBS Sports HQ, our streaming network. We'll be talking basketball this evening, but that's enough for us today. We're going to be back on Monday with Ashley Nicole Moss. So for Bill Ryder, our NBA insider, I'm John Gonzalez. Everybody, thank you so much for listening and have a great weekend.